Okay, so we're going to do a quick site assessment of a property that we're helping out on and using a Ventrac to do some tree care, tree removal stuff. So we want to point out some of the advantages of the tractor. It's a little bit of a different approach than some other machinery that you'd use for this, and it isn't quite as capable in some ways, but it's way more capable in others, and this property is probably perfect to showcase that. So the trees that came down were up here in this section, and we've got a bunch of different size and types of logs, and the terrain is really difficult. So there's a couple things that are really making it challenging, but because we have the Ventrac, it's a little bit easier to work with. Up in this area, the terrain is not flat at all, and it has a lot of contours. So we're able to crawl up and around things, and I was just picking logs out from behind standing trees that I could only get to because I could drive almost to them and then articulate the machine to get in and grab the log. Past the whole area where you're actually working, and it's challenges all in itself, you come down through here and all of the transitions to get out to the road and to the truck are difficult. So you've got a trench right here. It'll be very hard to see on camera, but this is about a foot deep compared to the normal grade, and this would upset a standard machine on tracks because it's too rigid of a machine. And the problem is you're carrying a heavy load all the way out. Because of the tractor and its oscillation, the frame is able to crawl over this and keep ground contact. We're actually also not doing a crazy amount of damage. If you look down here, the ground underneath of us is super wet, and the grass is, you can see some spots that we've actually dug into a little bit, but the grass is still pretty much intact. This isn't a super important area to the homeowner that owns this property. It's not like the most manicured finished grass in the world, but it's a good representation of what would happen if you did work in an area like that that's even less challenging. And then we keep going out this way, and it gets even worse. So we have one way in and out of this property. It's this narrow path up the side of a hill. And there is no other way to get stuff out of this property because the buildings and the structures take up all of the pathways out on the other side. Walk through here, and we've got the typical obstacles of trees and things close by. But then as you get up the hill, it starts to turn pretty steep. And you'll see that this hill is steeper than you would want to mow even with regular equipment, let alone carry logs and heavy debris out through this area. And as you can tell, we've been making passes all morning now, and the ground is not totally disturbed. You can see our tracks, you can see where we've been, but we haven't torn anything up, and the ground is not rutted or anything like that. So we're able to crawl up over this hill, no problem. Now you're in the homeowner's yard, and you want to keep this area as nice as possible. You could lay out some tracks and some plywood and try and preserve this area, but using the tractor like this, you don't have to do any of that work at all. And I'm making loops around, so I'm going up through the front yard next to this flower bed, but I want to try and minimize my stops on a certain area. So when I drop logs in the trailer, I'm not driving back on the same spot, and by doing that I can reduce my traffic 50%. I'm actually driving back through this ditch to get back when I'm unloaded and I don't have the weight of logs, making the machine more unstable. But no other machine could do this. So I'm taking advantage of being able to drive in multiple places to do even less impact on the turf and what's underneath, and it ultimately results in a yard that by the time we leave and it has a few days to recover, won't look like we've been there at all. And then of course, the challenge of getting these logs into the trailer. There's a lot of different trailer setups that you can have. This one is not actually all that beneficial. An ideal trailer would be much lower, maybe removable sides, but we're able to still get these logs up into the trailer to be hauled away after getting out of that whole area, which is pretty phenomenal.